Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's program. My name is Warren Stokes. I'm a senior CRM consultant at Avidian Technologies. We have a very full crowd today. Must be a popular topic, which is how to create a consistent and repeatable sales process. By the way, you can ask questions during the webinar using the webinar control panel, and at the end of today's program, I will get to those that I can. So let's talk about our agenda today. We're going to learn about, first of all, the benefits of creating a consistent sales process, some of the best practices in doing so. We're also going to go into some depth in the actual design of the sales process itself and focusing a lot on using automation to ensure that consistent repeatability. And we're going to use analytics to refine the process. Let's talk first about what you can gain from developing a consistent process. By the way, this applies to any type of process, whether it's a sales process or other business process, but today we're focusing on the sales process. One of the key benefits is that you can drive desired behaviors of your team. Another one is just in general help get the team organized. This consistent process design will also help you shorten your sales cycle. Ultimately, you'll be able to drive increased revenue, and an added benefit is accurate forecasting of those revenues. So I'm going to cover some points and concepts here before I get into the demonstration portion, which will be here following shortly. So let's talk about some of the best practices in designing a sales process. First of all, create a document. It doesn't have to be fancy. This can be on a Microsoft Word document. It could be on a yellow legal pad, or it can be in the program I use, which is Microsoft Visio. The next thing you want to do is think about and then start writing down what data you want to capture, as you'll find that capturing data is a key part of a process design. Then what you'll do is identify the key sales stages, and these are nothing more than the steps you normally go through in your sales process. Then we're going to start defining the activities that take place at each stage. Remember, though, to involve the business process owners. In this case, in the context of today's program, this would be primarily salespeople, sales management, and executive management, but it could be anyone involved in the process. Very key. You have to get their buy-in. And what you want to talk about is what information you want to track. Everybody has ideas on this, and my coaching on that is keep it as simple as possible and as relevant as possible. And then finally, what we'll be able to do is benchmark where we are, start refining the process, and then troubleshooting and improving it. So the sales process design is actually a fairly simple concept if you take it in parts. So first, what you want to do is think about your sales process in stages or steps that you go through. In this example, I have stage 1 being qualifying, stage 2 being presentation stage 3 is generating and sending proposals, stage 4 would be maybe negotiation, stage 5 would be closing the process, closing the deals, if you will. But these are fully definable, and what we're going to be doing a little later in the program here is showing you a live example of how to do this in Prophet CRM, which is an Outlook-based CRM built by Avidian. The key concept here, though, is start with defining these high-level stages, if you will, and then there's a number of activities that go on with each stage. For example, in stage 1, qualifying stage, first you want to perhaps establish a budget, maybe identify a timeline, start identifying competition, maybe identify reasons that prospects might buy your product. Who are the decision makers? Identify them, and you want to capture all this information. At the end of this stage, you're basically going to make a yes-no decision. Is this prospect qualified, yes or no? If the answer is no, you can close out the record and move on, but if the answer is yes, you go to stage 2. And in this example, we have a stage called presentation stage. And all you're doing is defining the activities that take place at each stage, at each primary milestone. It might be set up a meeting. Whatever meeting software you use. We use Microsoft Outlook and web meeting software. You might want to create a presentation as part of your process. Are the decision makers present? Yes or no? If not all are present or not enough of them are present, perhaps you want to set up a second meeting. If the decision makers are present, you move to stage 3. In this example, that's proposal stage. You've shown them your product or service. Now it's time they've requested a quote or a proposal. You might have various steps involved in creating this proposal, such as defining who you're going to work with, what's the scope of work, create the actual proposal document, send it to them, and so on. The point here is that you can map this out on a legal pad, a whiteboard, or you can use software like Visio or other process design software to basically map out this process. The point is, what we want to do is create a consistent and repeatable process and have everyone trained on it. And as you can see, we progress through the stages. Stage 4, negotiation, and then there's yes/no decisions that get made. And it's good to actually document all these things. And finally, stage 5 would be you're closing the deal. So one of the key processes, or one of the key activities in sales process design, is to decide what activity that you want to track. I like to think of it as a sales process that starts early in the process. There's a mid part of the process, and then there's a late part of the process. And in this example, early activities might be phone calls or emails or even webinars. Stage 2 activity might be additional communications of the same type. Stage 3 could be on-site meetings, discovery calls, appointments. Stage 4 might be presentations, demonstrations, site visits, and so on. And so it's useful just to define your normal sales activity, your sales process, in the context of sales stages, and you'll see why that's important as I start showing you how to apply this in your CRM. So let's talk a little bit more about the activity, defining the activity. First of all, you can define the activity as anything you want, but it's important to keep it relevant. Think of it this way: what activity is important to you that you want to track? So in this example, I'm showing that you might want to track phone calls, voicemails, appointments scheduled, demonstrations conducted, and so on. And in Prophet CRM, as you'll see, that's all configurable and customizable. Then start thinking about the desired behaviors that we're trying to capture here. There's prospecting behaviors that are slightly different than selling behaviors. There's communications, follow-up, closing, and these are all represented by different activities. So, as in our CRM, Prophet CRM, you'll be able to customize those activities to include only those you really care about. All of these are going to be reportable, as you'll see in our demonstration today. And think of activities as leading indicators. You might want to know, for example, how many proposals were sent out last month, how many outbound calls were made, how many demonstrations of your product or service were done. And all of this is part of capturing activity, and it's a key part of your sales process. So one of the key concepts is defining your sales stages. Think of them as basically milestones that you're going to be going through in your sales process. Steps, if you will. And think of only the major milestones. The labels of those stages should be descriptive, like new lead, qualifying, product demonstration, proposal, so that at a glance you can relate the stage to what's actually occurring at that stage. Then you'll start defining the activities for each stage. What goes on when you send a proposal? What happens when you do a product demonstration? And then these can trigger workflow automation, which you'll find very useful in using a CRM. It's the ability to automate activities at each of these stages. And the idea of automation is to ensure consistency. So in Prophet CRM, you'll be able to create templates for all the different types of activities. And in Prophet, we're an Outlook-based CRM, so we use the Outlook format of Outlook tasks to generate reminders, emails to communicate with prospects, appointments to set meetings. And then you'll establish the timing for each of these activities that you're defining. Do you want it to be immediately launched? Do you want it to happen in 3 days, maybe a 7-day follow-up, 14 days, or all of the above, and create a series? The idea is that once you've created this automation, you basically just set it and forget it. Reminders pop up in Outlook, emails get created and queued up automatically, and appointments that you've created will automatically be on your calendar. It's really awesome. Then we're going to use analytics to refine the process, and here in a moment I'll show you how all this works in Prophet CRM in a live demonstration. But the idea here is once we define the process, develop it, and implement it, then we can start to refine it. You'll be able to look at such things as sales cycle metrics by team and individual contributors. You can look at things like sales activity metrics, how many activities it takes to close a deal, maybe the number of different activities by sales rep. And things like a very important metric would be conversion rates. These are the rate at which you convert leads or prospects into new business. You can track and analyze this from a team standpoint and for individual reps. So I'm going to switch over and we're going to go into Prophet CRM. And we basically start by going right into Microsoft Outlook. Prophet is an Outlook-based CRM that adds CRM functionality to Outlook. So what we're going to start with is taking a look at the basic fundamentals of a CRM. One of them is contact management. The idea here is this is where you're going to have all of your contacts stored. In Prophet, we use the Outlook contact form. And these are all listed in a view, and you can create different views of these. The idea here is that you need contacts that are generally associated with your opportunities, and Opportunity Manager is the next section. Opportunities are just a list of prospects that you're working on. And notice here in Prophet that I'm actually never leaving Outlook. We just have simply added CRM folders to your Outlook folder list. So I'm going to click on my Opportunity Manager, and I'm going to give you some examples of how to use Prophet to help ensure a consistent and repeatable sales process. And one of the key concepts here is the ability to set up automated workflow. Let me explain that. I'm going to go into an opportunity here by just clicking on it. Let me explain this record a little bit. This is a record that is a record of a potential sale or a potential contract, and it contains three types of interlinked records. It contains contacts, and if I click on that, you'll see this is nothing more than an Outlook contact with some functionality that we add in the form of these buttons here. You can categorize these contacts. Maybe you want to categorize them in different ways. They're a prospect or what have you. But really, it's just nothing more than an Outlook contact. It can contain a company link. So this would be the company information along with that contacts associated with that company. And you can have multiple contacts associated with the opportunity. Now this is a customizable form. So when we talk about a consistent process, let me zero in on a couple of things. First of all, you need to define what information you want to capture. So since it's a customizable form, we're able to do that. For example, you can define your own status, active, won, lost, on hold, etc. You can define your sales stages, and this is at the core of what we're talking about today. So when we were looking at the sales process, these are those high-level stages that you defined in your sales process. In this case, we get a lead, we do some qualifying, we do a product demonstration, maybe that results in a proposal, you get payment, you close the deal. You can also add some post-sales stages. And a key part of what I'm going to be showing you here is how to automate activity at each of these stages. But before I get into that, I just wanted to finish the idea of capturing more data. So we're basically capturing information, in this case, about a prospect. There might be a description line up on top. In our case, we sell CRM, so it's how many CRM users there might be. Maybe we want to track the region or territory. We use time zones. It's very useful if you're doing a lot of outbound calling and meetings. Maybe you want to understand what the current competitor is. In our business, it's other CRMs, or sometimes just no CRM, or maybe they're using Excel and that sort of thing. You might want to capture why they're considering switching vendors or finding a new vendors, that sort of thing. And on the right, you'll see that there's settings like probability. I always like to say probability would be an exact science, except for the fact that you really don't know what the outcome is going to be. So it's a bit of a guess, but we can make it an educated guess. So for example, I happen to know through our own metrics and analytics that about 40% of the prospects that see a live demonstration end up becoming a client. Now, I don't recommend binding these stages together to the probability, but you'll define some best practices as you use the CRM. You can create an estimated close date. This might be, we'll say by the end of the year in this case. You can put a revenue estimate in here. You can include, these are customizable labels, so this might be total revenue, this could be monthly revenue. It's up to you what you call these fields. Another field that's very useful is a next step field. Imagine if you always knew what the next step was on every deal, and not only was it in front of you, but it was documented with the date, and there was a reminder to do that item in Outlook. Pretty cool. So the idea here is we're just capturing data. And there's other customizable tabs and fields, and a very key one would be to understand where business is coming from. So I'm going to touch on that briefly while we're talking about data capture. You might want to understand the type of lead or prospect that it is. Did it come from your website? Was it from a referral? Was it from prospecting or other? Maybe you want to know if it's a web channel. Was it an organic search? Was it a direct search? Was it a pay-per-click, or was it social media? In your business, you might want to have a little high-level description of what this opportunity is about. In our case, it would be the number of users of the CRM, maybe what search engine they use, and so forth. And there's just a variety of information that you might want to capture, and these tabs can also be renamed as you customize Prophet for your use. So again, all we're doing here is we're defining information and capturing data about this particular opportunity. Now we're going to zero into this concept of sales automation, which will help automate your sales process. So we're going to go back to these stages and talk a little bit about that. Each stage can have a series of automated and semi-automated activities associated with it. So in this example, let's say I get a new lead and I want to process the automation for it. I just click the button next to the sales, which is also the sales stage label, and watch what happens. It says, do you want to process workflow? And a number of things occur as if by magic. There's a reminder set out for me to call them in 5 days. There's another reminder in another week. Here's a meeting that's already queued up and ready to go. And I have an introductory email that's automatically created. This is called workflow automation. The idea here is what we're doing is we're helping automate our sales process. So in this case, you can see that it's an email that's queued up and ready to send. It's just a typical introductory email, one that you've written 1,000 times, I'm sure. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to put this in templates, which I'll show you that template tool in a moment. But I'm just going to send that email off to Rose, click send, although I could edit it beforehand. Now notice a number of things have occurred here. First of all, that email was sent and it's now tracked through my email tracking here. And here it is right here. Here's the email that I sent. Prophet has a very powerful email tracking capability. And by the way, while I'm talking about that, you can set the tracking capability to track either automatically, so you can auto track emails, or you can choose to manually link emails to any given opportunity. But in any case, what I did is I launched a series of activities here, and it's represented under this tab called Workflow. Wow, look at that. Look at all these activities I've got scheduled out. In this case, they go out through December 15th. And each one of them is different. The first one is the intro email that was already created, and you can see that it's done in the summary here. The next one is an email that's a 2-day follow-up. Believe it or not, I find that a second follow-up in 2 days just to make sure they receive the first one works great. It's a wonderful, wonderful little follow-up. Then I have a reminder that pops up in Outlook to remind me to call them. Then there's that introductory meeting that was automatically created. Then there's a 1-week follow-up, and you can have as many or as few of these automated follow-ups as you wish. And because this is really at the central theme of our webinar today, that is that we're talking about creating a consistent and repeatable sales process, is that this is what's driving that, is this largely this automation. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the kind of behind the scenes on how those templates are created. So there's a tool in Prophet where you create these templates, and in this case it's the administrator setting, and you can see under sales automation I have a list of templates. Reminders are just tasks. They just pop up in Outlook. Now you can have content in these tasks, like talking points to remind you of what to talk about at that stage or with that reminder. Here's an email. This is the one we were just viewing, and in this case it's a template. Notice it says hello, first name. Thanks for taking a look at Prophet. Here's all the reasons why it's a great idea to buy. And whatever you want to put into this. And again, you've already written these emails thousands of times. What we're doing is institutionalizing them and putting them in a template format. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple more so you can get a full idea as to what's going on. Here's a 1-week follow-up email. So the idea is it references, the fact that, hey, just checking in to make sure you have all the information you need. And again, it's personalized. So you can do hello, first name. You can do dear prefix, last name. You can use different salutations. But in this case, it's my 1-week follow-up. And so depending on the length of your sales cycle and the kind of communications that you want to drive, then you'll create as many or as few of these as you want. And you can see that I have a whole number of these, in this case going out 11 weeks. So the idea here after that is to basically set it up so that each stage will have a different set of activities that are automated. So down here at the bottom of this administrator tool, you'll see that I have my listing of the assignments of all of these templates. So here's the template, here's the stage it's in. I like to number these so that you can kind of keep them in sequence of your sales process. So the intro email is number 1, and you can see that there's 0 days delay, meaning that launches immediately. There's a 2-day follow-up, so after another day it will pop up. There's a reminder in 5 days, there's a 1-week follow-up, 14-day follow-up, and so on, and you can see this can go out as far as you want into the future, and each of these can be a different action. So that's the basic concept of creating these templates and then giving them the number of days and assigning them a stage and giving them the number of days in the sales process that you want to wait. So what we've basically done is we've launched this workflow series so that I can set it and forget it. This is a very powerful function, and it absolutely will help you drive a consistent sales process. I should also point out that you can actually I'm going to go back into that administrator tool. You can actually publish these automated workflows out to your team so everyone's using the same process, the same steps, and the same content. And since this is an Outlook-based CRM, if it's an email, for example, the email signature can be automatically appended, so it's still personalized from that user. Just an awesome way to set that up. So now that we've set up the automation, then what happens is on those future days, I will see tasks that pop up, appointments on my calendar over here on the right. You can see that I have a variety of reminders that are going to be popping up to call someone, or meetings on my calendar that are automatically set up. And so basically you set it and forget it, and what you're really doing is driving that process that we designed. But let's talk a little bit more then about what we do once we have a number of these all set up. First of all, if there's anything that's ready to be processed, in other words, something that was a future item that's now ready to go, a queue will pop up and it looks like this. In this case, you can see that I have a number of them due today. I have 13 items. Now I could just sort of glance through that, process them all with a click, but I usually like to either open the item before I process, so I say display each item before processing, then I click the process button, because I might want to actually edit that email a little bit before I click send, because right now this is just an Outlook email. In this case, this is a live action here, live action webinar. I'm going to click send, and that one goes off to Larry. Here's another one. It's my 2-day follow-up for Blake. I open it up, and I'm going to go ahead and say, I could just click send on that one, or I could edit it. But the idea here is that you have the ability then to process these automated workflows either all at once with a click, or you can process them individually. It's pretty awesome, actually. I got to tell you, I don't know how I would ever be successful without this type of automation. I just love it. So the idea then is, now that we have created this opportunity and we have been tracking the activities, we have automated follow-up set up, one of the key concepts then is to manage these opportunities in a view called Opportunity Managers. And I'm going to show you a couple of other related items to the idea of sales process that are very relevant here. And that is, first of all, I can change this view. I can have as many views as I want. But you can see here that I can sort any of these columns. Maybe I want to, sort it by probability. So I want to work on my high probability accounts here. So these are all those that are over 50% probability. And there's a little summary down below that's pretty handy. This shows I have $144,000 pending deals that I'm working on that are high probability, over 50% likely, the average deal size. But one of the things I can do here is I can right click and I can say create a mailer to everyone on this, maybe a card or a letter, or I can send a group email out to everyone on that list, and I'm going to show you an example of doing that. The point is now that we've developed a consistent process, we can then apply certain actions at each stage or criteria, in this case high probability. So I'm going to select send a group email. This will bring up a wizard of all of the contacts in those opportunities that are more than 50% likely. It's just a really nifty little 3-step wizard where you choose your format, and then you choose a personalized salutation, and then you create the email. And the very first one is actually just you're creating your content. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here that you may already know about, but I'm going to basically type in the word Oh, what should I type in today? Let's just say agenda and see how it put that content in there. Now I can format that email. I'm just showing you what's called sales automation. I can also notice what's happening here. This is coming from some automated templates that I've set up called quick parts. So I can select from any of my quick parts over here. And in this case, I'm going to type in a different one. I'm going to start typing in the word thank you. Notice how it predicts what I'm going to put in there. And I just hit enter and I've populated that. I'm just showing you a little bonus material here. This is actually a function of Outlook, but because Prophet is built right into Outlook, it's very useful. All I'm doing here is I'm creating an email that's going to go out to everyone on that list. But notice it's personalized. So I can click send and everybody on that list will get a personalized email from me to them right through Outlook. It's just one of the things you can do once you've developed a process that you're capturing of how you're capturing information and what you do with that information. In this case, I'm using probability, but it could be some other criteria. Maybe I want to sort it by deal size and I want to send out an email to my top 15 prospects, like right click, send group email. It's just awesome. And while we're talking about this, I'm just going to interject a few other useful tips for you. And as we're talking about opportunity management, the concept here is that you can create different views. So this is my active pipeline. I have 78 deals in my active pipeline. But once you've developed a sales process that's consistent, you'll be able to identify stages. So for example, this is a key concept as we were talking about. I have a view that's all my proposal stage deals. So I have 19 deals in proposal stage. I have other views like that. But this particular view here is just all my active pipeline. And so the idea is here I can sort and filter by different criteria. I might want to sort it by sales stage and work on these people that I haven't contacted yet. Maybe I want to sort it by revenue potential like I just did, or probability. I'll tell you a real useful process that you can use is sorting it by oldest modified date. The idea here is that as part of your sales process, you want to make sure that you're obviously following up on leads and prospects, and one of the criteria is the oldest date. So in this case, I can just go through and start calling and contacting these based on the oldest modified date, and that also updates the record as I go through them. So these are some of the things that you can do that once you've created a consistent process will help you manage your sales pipeline. So I'm still in Opportunity Manager here, and I wanted to show you another concept or two. One of them is called the next step concept. So let's just say I wanted to look at all the deals that are in proposal stage, and I wanted to know what my next step is for every one of them. Well, remember that field we talked about? One of the best practices is to basically capture your next step demo follow-up, September 12th. I have a reminder pops up in Outlook on that date. So this is just a list of all of my next steps, and it's pretty awesome. I could also filter this view to kind of see what I have to do, in the next week or the next month. So I can say, okay, I want to look at everything I have to do in a certain time range. So what I'm going to do is set a filter here. The idea here is I'm just basically narrowing down the list based on some criteria. And it's very process related because part of the process is always understanding what your next step is. So in this case, I want to do everything between today and say the end of next week, and this will narrow that list down to my action items between now and the end of next week. Awesome. Wow, look at that. That's my to-do list essentially. So we've been talking about managing opportunities and setting up the automation for that. Now I want to switch gears a little bit and show you how you can also automate activities for contacts. The concept here is that in a CRM, and that's true with Prophet CRM, is that not all contacts are opportunities. They're not all clients. They're just contacts. So in this case, I have a list of all my contacts. In my case, I have 2,731 active contacts I'm working with. And I can do a number of things here, but one of the key concepts is I can set some automation for that contact, just like I did the opportunity. But it's not necessary. It's not a qualified opportunity. It's just somebody I met, but I want to keep in touch with them. So you can have automation. In this case, I have emails and reminders and meeting requests out there going into the future, and I can select them all, or I can select individual follow-ups by just clicking those buttons. I can also select the start date. Maybe I know they're going on vacation or going to be at a trade show until the 5th, so I could start it on October 5th and create a series of automated follow-up. So the distinction here is that this automation is for contacts. The workflow automation is for opportunities. And part of the concept here is capturing customizable information. So in this case, you can see that I have a contact, and on the right, and on this pane here, I have a custom contact profile. This is up to you what you want to define all of these fields. There's 20 customizable fields. One of the fields is hobbies. It might be useful to know that. It might be, just to kind of get to know people. Birth date, anniversary date, all those kind of things in sales that we like to know. Type of contact. Maybe you want to drop down list of are they a prospect, a vendor, a customer, or what have you. But then you can create views based on these. So one of the concepts here is you want to create a view, say, of all the contacts by hobby. So I have a view like that. I'm going to show you a little bit about how we create these views. Basically, all I did here is I chose what fields that I wanted in my view by choosing the columns. I just go into column chooser here. And in this case, I put hobbies in my view. Now, it's just a list of all of the hobbies, but I can narrow it down by putting in a little filter. So let's say you wanted to invite everyone to a golf outing. Notice how I just typed in the word golf in my filter. All of these people are interested in golf. I happen to be too. That's why I probably use that example. Now I might want to launch a group email out to everyone on this list. I can send a group email to everyone interested in golf, sending an invitation to my golf outing or what have you. You get the idea. I'm just showing you that you can use this information to drive various activities. And it's still part of a sales process, or at least a customer relationship process, to communicate with people, and you need some method of doing that. So notice I have all kinds of different views. I have contacts in California, I have CPA firms, I have CPA firms in Minnesota. Let me show you how this was created, because the idea here is narrowing down the criteria so that you have a very defined list of contacts. It's very simple. I just added a couple of filters. One that's category equals CPA firm, other one is state equals Minnesota. Simple. Now I've got a list of all the CPA firms in Minnesota. Maybe I'm going to travel there and I want to send them all an email telling them I'm going to be traveling in their territory, set up meetings, and that kind of thing. And while we're on this, one of the key things that you can do is you can very easily create an opportunity from a contact. Maybe they replied to that email and said, yeah, hey, not only would I like to join your golf tournament, I'd like to learn more about your CRM solution. So I just say create an opportunity with that contact. Pretty cool. Very easy to do. The key point here, though, is we've never left Outlook. We're still in Outlook. I'm just accessing it by clicking on these folders. So to stick with our agenda today, we're really talking about sales process design, but a lot of that is kind of the precursor to that is contact management. So I thought I'd touch on that a little bit. And so we're going to go into the concept of creating, how do we capture the data that is used in all of this automation? Well, I'm going to go back to this record here and I'm going to show you a little behind the scenes. This is going to be cool. You'll get to see a look at the administrative tools behind creating all these. Remember, we said all of these things are customizable, like the stages, and that's what we've been talking about, automating the sales process. So how did we create those? Well, I'm going to demystify that a little bit for you. And I'm just going to bring up my my tool, the admin console, where we automate those things. It's really just a secure login, as you can see here. It's a login page that you'll have. Maybe you're already a Prophet user and maybe you already know this, but I'm going to go in and show you a couple of things here anyway. So one of the things I've been showing you is how to configure templates. So let's go into that template that I was showing you. This is actually our live data. And this is where you could go in and configure those stages. I'm going to slow down a little bit. I went into my templates. I selected the template that we're using, and the display is on the right here, kind of a visual of that opportunity record. And I just clicked on the stage edit button. So here's all my stages, but I can change these. I can edit them. I can add new stages. I can change the name of this label. So one of the processes that you will go through, or perhaps you already have, is the defining of these stages. But this is true of all of these fields. So depending on what kind of information you want to capture, why they're interested in your product, that's a customizable drop-down. There are also 3 tabs of information over here on the right that each field is completely configurable as to whether it's a drop-down list, a date field, or a text box. You can make these mandatory. I'm not a big fan of that, frankly, because driving a consistent process means that you don't want to make it hard for people to use it. But we do have a couple of required fields in Prophet. Maybe you will too. But the point is, you can choose to hide that field if you're not using it. So you can see quite a few hidden fields here. You know, this is where we capture like what kind of a web channel it was, a direct hit, an organic search result, pay-per-click, social media, and so forth. And these are just examples. You can also change the name of these three tabs to anything you want. Qualifying info, sales follow-up info. And it's basically the tool that we're using to define things like the stages that will help in defining your consistent sales process. So that's basically kind of what's happening in the back end. Now I'm going to touch on one other thing, because in Prophet Enterprise Edition you can have additional departments that use this for different things. Like, for example, you might have account management having a different record. You might have a marketing department that's using it for tracking, you know, marketing activities and things of that nature. And that actually brings me to another concept. I want to basically make sure that you understand kind of the full capabilities here. And we are talking about designing a consistent sales process, but there could be more than one sales process in your organization by division, department, or some other criteria. So you can have different views that are different departments. So for example, I have an accounts view. Maybe you work primarily with existing accounts, so you might want an account view. Notice that this is a completely different record. It has nothing to do with getting the customer. It's a record of a customer, and you have customizable fields. But you can do the same thing with this. You can create consistent automated follow-up. An example of that would be on an existing client, as I worked with a bank not long ago setting up Prophet CRM, and they had what they called a customer continuity program. And what we did is we just developed a workflow that had a follow-up 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and then every other month after that. They clicked, launched, and then it's basically almost impossible to forget that, because remember, those reminders and those activities either just pop right up in Outlook or they show up in this queue. I'm going to show you that again. The point here is that you can actually define a process and automation for those processes based on different user types. So maybe someone that just works with accounts that you already have would use account management. Perhaps you have a marketing team that is tracking marketing events. And while this isn't necessarily a sales process, the concept is identical, which, by the way, it's useful to remember that, because this isn't just about sales, it's about dealing with customers. So this might be a record that helps you track marketing events. In this case, it's a educational seminar, and you can have statuses and stages based upon that. So here's the event status, event in process, event closed, event completed. Here's the stage of the event. It's kind of like a sales process, but this is an event template. Nothing to do with, you know, how many invitations did you send? Nothing to do with sales, RSVPs, no shows, recurring event, yes, no. But in all cases, we tend to have we have the tracking capability where you have notes, history, email tracking, appointment, task files, and so on. So now we're going to talk a little bit about a process that will help drive a consistent, repeatable process, or a functionality that will help drive that. And we're going to dig into that just a little bit more. So we talked a little bit about that contact automation. So I'm going to go back into the tool where we're looking at that. So I just go into my Prophet Administrator, but instead of going into the workflow actions, we're going to look at sales assistant actions. Concept is the same, only this time we're talking about automating for a contact, a person, not an opportunity. Very useful, and I showed you this briefly, but this is the back end. You can have a series of activities that are represented by emails, appointments on your calendar, tasks, which just generate reminders, emails that automatically get queued up, and so on. So you can also create automation for contacts. So we're going to get into an element now that will help you really thoroughly understand the outcome of all this, and it's analytics. So now let's assume that we've set up a consistent and repeatable process, and we want to look at some of the analytics behind all of that. This, in fact, is one of my favorite parts of the CRM of Prophet, and that is the ability to look at some very real metrics in real time. So notice all I did here, by the way, I'm sitting here in my inbox. I want to clarify something. I just went down to this folder called Analytics, Prophet Analytics, and it brings up a series of dashboards. So, you know, the question, first of all, is what? What do you want to do? What activity do you want to create? What kind of data do you want to collect? And the next question is, so what? So the so what of all this is, if we're tracking activity, first of all, we want to make sure it's relevant activity. Remember, we talked about creating that activity list entry, but those activities that you enter can be tracked and reported on in a dynamic fashion. So you can look at a month, a quarter, a year, or any date range in this view. This is Prophet Analytics, and you can look at the activity by user in this case. Now, if I just wanted to look at myself, I could do that, or I could compare myself to several individuals. These are the people I work with. And then I can look at the activities generated. And notice if I just mouse over that, 51 phone calls, 48 voicemails. Isn't that the truth? About half and half. I scheduled 48 appointments. I conducted 20 demos and so on. So this is ability to identify activities. Now this happens to be a very useful thing because after all, sales especially is an activity generated business. You got to make phone calls, you got to set appointments, meet with clients, prospects. You know, eventually you get to the point where you're sending proposals and so on. But here's one that I think you'll find particularly useful, and as you think about sales automation, this will be, I think some light bulbs will go on here. This dashboard shows us how many of those activities it takes to close business. How many activities does it take to close the deal? And this is actually a list of all of the clients that we signed up in the last month, quarter, or year, depending on your display up here in the upper right. Now take a look at this. This tells me that it took a total of 10 activities per deal. And it even tells me how many of each activity that it takes. So if I click on phone call, it shows that it takes an average of 3 phone calls. If I click on voicemails, it'll show me that. It takes an average of 4 voicemails. Look at that ratio, 4 voicemails to 3 connects. Interesting. And it just shows me a profile of what activities it takes to close the deal. Now, I've selected direct activities, non-automated activities, because that's more in the control of the sales rep. But this tells me it takes 10 activities per deal to close, and it tells me what activities and how many. Now, what do you suppose we're going to do with that information? How about setting up some workflow automation that drives that? Now, there's an idea, huh? So what I mean by that is if you know it takes 10 activities to close a deal, maybe you want to have 10 or so activities automated. Novel concept there, but it's just incredibly powerful once you start getting the analytics on this. So this is a recipe, it's a roadmap for how to create your automated sales process, and this will give you the feedback on it. Notice it changes as I change the date range. So here's it on an average for the quarter, it took 8 direct activities. For the month, it took 10. Let's see what it is for the year. 5 activities. Oh, getting less efficient. Don't like that. Anyway, working harder. So this is the idea behind the analytics, is that you're able to get real-time feedback, daily feedback on all of these statistics. One of the things that you might want to look at, for example, is the conversion rates, because after all, the reason we're going through all this is to basically get customers. So you can see here in this case, this is a conversion rate display of how well you're converting at different stages and by different reps. So this is awesome because you'll be able to track then as you might refine and tweak your sales process. You might find that you want to, that your sales closure ratio will go up if you did something. Obviously, if it's working, keep doing it. If it's not, do something else. Not all that complicated, right? So in the amount of time we have left today, I'm going to start looking for questions over here, and if you have any questions, they will be in the control panel there. You just enter the chat question, and I'll catch as many of those as I can in the next few minutes. But the concept here then is just to kind of briefly summarize where we're at here, is that what we've essentially done. I'm going to go back to my document here for a second. Is that we're basically talking about sales process design. Okay, so what we wanted to do is design a sales process that's represented by key milestones, stages that you go through. Don't get carried away with this. My coaching is keep it simple. If in doubt, don't include it. But then document, whether this is on a yellow legal pad, a whiteboard, or using Visio or some other tool. Document your sales process, because that's going to define our automation steps. And in fact, what we want to do is define the automation to drive the process, not the other way around. You know, decide what activity you want to track, but keep only those activities that are important. And you'll find that those activities fall in these different early, middle, late stages of the process. But think about it. What's important to you? Well, generally, you want to know how many outbound phone calls were made, maybe how many emails were sent, how many webinars were done, how many quotes you generated, and these start to be, later stage activities. Quotes, proposals, contracts, things of that nature are very, very important. So the idea is to capture the activity and put it into your sales process. And think about those behaviors that you're trying to drive. You're driving really prospecting, selling, communication, follow-up, and closing. That's what these activities are all about. And so basically what we've done is designed a sales process that helps automate and reinforce what you do every day, but it puts it in an organized manner so that you can make sure that these activities occur when they're supposed to. And finally, we use analytics to refine the process and take a closer look at things like the activity metrics. How many activities does it take to close deals? How many activities by each sales rep were done last month? What's the conversion rate? What can we do to improve it? And you basically have a loop that's a continuous process improvement loop in using these analytics. So let me just summarize here and we'll start to wrap up. I am seeing some questions coming in over here, so I'll get to those here in a moment. Well, I'll just answer one question that's on top here is, can I get a copy of the PowerPoint today? Yes, you can. In fact, by putting that little chat in there, I will capture that and send it to you. You can also, I'll post my contact information at the end of today's program. But let's summarize what we're learning today, hopefully what we have learned. One of them is, what were the benefits of a consistent sales process? Drives consistency, capture of information, drives behavior. At the end of the day, it should drive increased sales results because you're going to shorten your sales cycle, be more efficient, and have a better process. We've talked about how to design your sales process at a high level. And I'm not too hung up on which tools you use, whether it's a whiteboard, a legal pad, or Visio, or some tool like that. But what you want to think through is, what are the primary steps that you go through? What are the ones that are really crucial, and build those into your CRM. And then let your CRM help you drive them. The sales process design is key. It's something I'm actually formally trained in. If you feel like contacting me after the webinar, feel free. I'll post my contact information and see if I can help you out. And a key part of all of this is how to use automation to ensure follow-up and ensure consistency. Frankly, I don't know how I would ever live without a tool like Prophet, but that's just me. It's awesome way to go is get some automation to help make sure you have a consistent and repeatable process. And then finally, use analytics to refine the process. Got a couple more questions coming in over here. One of them is, can I use let me just read that. Can I use sales automation to define a process in other departments? The answer is yes. So let me just briefly touch on that. So if you had, I've been talking mostly about sales, but the sales automation does not have to be sales related. You can have a customer service department that has their own series of follow-up, and that can be a whole different series of activities, emails, communications. In fact, one of the things you could do, whether you're in sales or not, is create a post-sale series. So a post-sale series is very useful, and it might consist of things like, hey, just thank you for your business. If there's anything I can do, let us know. Post-sale 2 might be, hey, I was wondering if you would be willing to provide any references for our product. We get a lot of business from referrals, and we'd be delighted to get them from you. And the post-sale 3 might be satisfaction surveys and so on. So you do not have to use this strictly for sales. So the answer is, and thanks for the question, by the way, it's very much relevant to other areas. And while I'm talking about that, let me just give you a glimpse of some of these other things. You might want to use a CRM. I'm branching off to expound upon that question because it's very relevant. You might want to use a CRM, for example, to track service tickets. Here's a view called service tickets. Here's an inquiry form that is a ticket. This has nothing to do with sales. This is a support group. Ticket status, active, closed, on hold, ticket stage, service in process, inquiry method, web phone, issue type, all customizable forms. So yes, you can use these concepts in other than sales. Thanks for that question. I'm going to take another look at my questions over here. All right, so the next question is, what versions of Outlook can you use Prophet with? Obviously, Prophet is an Outlook-based program. So we support all versions of Outlook between 2007, 2010, 2013, and Office 365. If you're on 2003, time to upgrade. We'll help you with that too if need be. Got time for one more question. Okay, the next question is, what other kind of reporting can you get? Well, I haven't covered that, but Prophet does include a whole series of different reports. So for example, I could go in and look at activity reports or pipeline reports, all kinds of different things in here. Maybe I want to look at things like, what's in my sales pipeline. I'm just going to show you quickly show you some of these canned reports here. This would just show me what I've got in my sales pipeline by stage, for example. You can put your own logos in these. There's a customizable template. I'll just show you that little tool here. So I do a lot of demos, and so I put other people's logos in here. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and, just go into my browser here and choose video and graphics, and I'll put our video and logo in there. So the point is that you can also customize these reports. So I just did that quickly to show you that. Now I can run that report, and you'll see that that new logo is in it. So there's a whole variety of these reports. The ones that relate mostly to the topic today, which is designing a consistent and repeatable sales process, talk a lot about activity, progress in the pipeline, and actually forecasting. If you think about it, at the end of the day, what this is all about is driving accurate information so that you can do things like accurate forecasting. Somebody once told me forecasting would be really easy, except for the fact that it's in the future. But check this out. All right, this is a forecast that shows all of my deals, but it has the stage, the revenue, the probability, so it gives me a weighted forecast by taking all of those, 4 pieces of information. That's interesting by itself. Really, if you think about it, all we're doing to get extremely good value out of this is capturing 4 pieces of information, which is part of our sales process: estimated close date, stage, revenue, and probability. And with that, you'll be able to, if you can accurately forecast your business, I would assert that you could probably effectively run your business. So we're about out of time today. I'm going to post my contact information and would invite any of you to contact me if you have any more questions or if I can help you in any way. Thanks for your time today. Signing off.